What's up, everybody? Welcome to podcast now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about the next Saints Row game. And we've talked about this before in terms of what it could possibly be and when we were supposed to see it. And spoilers, we were supposed to see this game many, many times, it feels like, over the last year or so. But coming from Okami, who is a reasonable enough, I would say, source, in terms of gaming leaks and rumors, says that a Saints Row reboot will be announced later this month. Now, technically, Okami says it will just be announced, in the month of August, but obviously we're halfway there. And then the Reddit post, I guess assumes that it's probably Gamescom is when we would see it. So this is slightly different from what we've seen before, but still obviously somewhat close in the fact that it is a new Saints Row game, but that it's a Saints Row reboot. Now, we've heard a lot of rumors for the Saints Row game that it would mimic some things, I think specifically in like Saints Row 2. It would be Saints Row 2-ish, and it would kind of drop some of the things that have happened in the more recent games, okay? Which is interesting because when you say, Saints Row reboot, it's like, well, those two things, they're different, but they're somewhat similar. You know what I mean? And the only reason I mention that stuff is that this is not the first time that we're hearing about it. You know what I mean? This is the first time we're hearing about what would be a reboot, but we've heard about Saints Row many times in the past, and even the info we've gotten, although it's always sounded like Saints Row was going to be, a sequel or just a game in the timeline, it would be kind of using some things, not using other things, and that sounds a whole lot like, what a reboot would be, right? So, I do think Gamescom makes a lot of sense. I know I had talked about this game in terms of E3. I thought E3 would be a good time this game could come out. Remember, I think, based off what we kind of know of how long they've been making this game and just all of that stuff, I feel like this game could have easily been announced last year. I think there were plenty of hints that it could potentially happen last year, but here we are, towards the end of I know we say the end even though it's August, but, we're getting there, especially in terms of games. If the game does get announced, next week, Gamescom is next Wednesday, which, by the way, just a, plug, I will be, co-streaming it. So if you guys want to watch Gamescom along with me, we will be doing that next Wednesday. We'll talk more about that as the days go on, but I think it's possible. I think it's possible it gets announced there. I think it's actually more likely it gets announced there. And then in terms of when it would release, that's a tough one, right? Because it could be, well, it depends. I mean, again, if they were supposed to announce it last year and then they were going to give like a longer out or, a farther out release date, and maybe they didn't want to do that because of, the stuff around the world, then maybe it would have made sense, or maybe it makes sense right now to announce it and then release it shortly after. So I don't know. I wouldn't put the odds as very high that we would get a quick turnaround, that they would get announced and then released, this fall, especially with the theme that Jeff Keighley keeps saying in terms of Gamescom. Remember, Gamescom is going to focus on games coming out the holiday season and, I get, well, the way he says it is almost like early next year. So, it falls into one of those. So I would say, November, December, January, February, somewhere in that range is what we're looking at for most of the games, I would imagine, that he's going to show. So, if I feel good about it, it feels good to talk about Saints Row. We haven't done it in a long time. I'm not the biggest fan of the franchise, but I definitely think they have their fans. I think they're very solid games overall. I've always kind of been looking for the right Saints Row to kind of jump into the franchise, and honestly, a reboot literally, it makes probably the most sense to jump in. I've actually owned several of the Saints Row games. It's just I've never really been a massive fan of them, but I'm excited for it. Again, kind of came out of nowhere, and here's hoping for Gamescom next week. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on. Again, I will be co-streaming Gamescom, and we'll be talking about Gamescom throughout the rest of the week and into next week, and obviously when, if games are announced, I'll cover them as well. If you guys want to follow me on any of my social media accounts, I have a Twitter, I have a second YouTube channel, I upload daily there as well. We also have Patreon and YouTube memberships. All the links for those are in the description below if you guys want to check it out, okay? Thank you for watching, guys. I really do appreciate it. I hope to see you all on the next video.